Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda, and I am here refilming my July wrap-up. I filmed this already, and I don't know what happened to the video. It's gone. I can't find it anywhere. But hey, I'm back. So yes, if you have never seen one of my monthly wrap-ups, I have sort of a format I use. It helps me to kind of stay on track and keep these videos within a certain, length, because we don't want to stay here for hours. But anyway, let's go through it. In the month of July, I read 19 books. 15 were fiction and 1 was nonfiction. I did have 1 DNF, which is right here, I think. Yeah. This book, The Grief Keeper by Alexandra Villasante. Nothing wrong with this book. It is a YA book. I sometimes have trouble with YA because I live with YAs, so just wasn't a book for me. Put that back on my little pile there. My average rating was 3.5. That's okay. In my format for books, 5 were in print, 7 were ebook, 6 audiobook, and 1 multiple or tandem read, so I listened to it as I read it. Now, the way I rate my books this year, because I change it every year, I do a scale of 1 to 5 stars, no half stars. That's probably what I'm going to change. But the stars sort of correlate with a kind of grouping. 1 star is I wish I had DNF'd. 2 stars are books I don't recommend. 3 stars are books I recommend. They could be maybe, not perfect, but still I'd recommend them, or maybe I just recommend them to a few people, something like that. 4 stars are highly recommended. And then 5-star books are 5-star books. They don't necessarily need to be perfect books, but they need to have really kind of left their mark on me. In a way, like, this is a book I'm not ever going to forget. For good reason. Sometimes there are books I will never forget for not good reasons. But this is for good reasons. I also have a little category called Up in the Air. These are generally 3-star books, and they're books I'm not quite sure what to think of them. So I have 2 books that fall into that Up in the Air category. And the first one is a book called The Sinners All Bow, 2 authors, 1 murder, and The Real Hester Prynne by Kate Winkler Dawson. So this is a nonfiction book. I went into it thinking it would be like literary history, but it's actually true crime. And it is very much true crime. It feels like true crime. The author herself, who narrates the audiobook, and that's important that I listen to the audiobook, has a true crime podcast. She talks about, even though this is about a murder that took place in the first half of the 19th century, she does talk to a lot of like modern investigators and forensic scientists and all that. So it very much feels true crime. So this tells actually 2 stories. It tells the story first of a murder of a young girl. I no longer have this book with me, so I can't remember all their names. Not young girl, young woman, I should say, because she was pregnant. But she was found hanging in someone's barn in Fall River, Rhode Island, in the first half of the 19th century. This crime had been covered by a writer whose name I can't remember because I don't have the book with me anymore at the time. And on top of all, telling the story of the crime and everything and whatever, Dawson tries to make the argument that Nathaniel Hawthorne was very influenced by this story, and it's what influenced to write The Scarlet Letter. There are ties, there are similarities between this crime and The Scarlet Letter. But if you know anything about The Scarlet Letter and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and if you know me, it's one of my favorite books and I reread it frequently. You know that yes, Nathaniel Hawthorne may have heard about this crime and thought, that's an interesting setup for a story that was already brewing in his head. But that's not why he wrote The Scarlet Letter. He wrote The Scarlet Letter to deal with the generational guilt he had over being descended from people who were in charge of the Salem witch trials. I mean, like, we all know that. I also felt that the arguments the author made to try to convince people of her viewpoint that Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote The Scarlet Letter because of this crime showed a lack of knowledge about The Scarlet Letter. The fact that she may not have read it from high school or was dealing off the Cliff's notes of it. It's kind of where I felt like on that. As a true crime book, great. As like the literary argument, no. Now, the audiobook part. I did listen to the audiobook, and this is quite possibly the sloppiest professionally produced audiobook I have ever heard in my life. Um, she talked about the Celtic people in New England. Unless they're playing basketball, they're Celtic. Only basketball players are Celtic, right? Like, that's pretty basic. Um, there was a lot of like kind of, if you listen to a podcast, you'll hear this a lot where they'll say something and then you realize they wanted to say it again, so they'll immediately say it again. In editing, that first one should be taken out. That doesn't bother me in podcasts because that's kind of like things come out weekly and you do your best. That really bothers me in an audiobook, which is a single production, right? So that really bothers me. But the one that really got me is I was listening to this, and she's talking about Fall River, Rhode Island, as being a mill town, which, if you know anything about it, they were these textile mills where the mill owners would hire young women to work in their factories. And it was very much like a company town. And it wasn't just like you went to work and then you were done. Your life was basically turned over to these mill owners who were supposed to take care of you. And she said the mill owners protected the girls from immortality. Yeah. Clearly, the word was immorality. Now, I don't know what the book itself says, if it says immortality or immorality. If it says immortality, that should have been fixed. And I don't know, like, when she said the word immortality, her ears should have caught that was wrong. But even if it didn't, there's an audiobook producer who should have cut that out, because that was so ridiculous. Anyway, that was my feeling on that. It depends what you're going into that book for. If you're going in for true crime, you'll probably really like it. If you're going in, otherwise you might not. I don't know. The second one I have is a book that I buddy read, which was good because I would not have finished it had I not buddy read it. But I am very glad that I buddy read it, and I read it with Becca at Read Becca. And this is A Canticle for Leibowitz. This is a foundational work of science fiction. I'm not a science fiction reader. It is very science fiction-y. But I like to kind of stretch myself a bit. And I had heard good things about it, so I bought it. And then I'd heard bad things about it, so I said, let's not do it. But then other people said good things. So it was a whole, like, whether or not we're going to do it, but we ended up doing it. And I'm very glad I read it with Becca. I do think, because I'm not a science fiction person, I probably missed a lot of things. And yeah, I think this is a more successful book if you read a lot of science fiction than if you don't. And I don't. But I didn't dislike the book at all. I'm still thinking about it. There's some really powerful things in this book. Lots of food for thought sort of stuff. So it's Canticle for Leibowitz. It's up in the air. Okay. I had 3 books that fell. I don't have any books I wish I DNF'd. I do have 3 books that fell into the not recommended. 2 of which are very much in the this is not for me sort of category. The first one is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. I know a lot of people love this book. It was not for me. Cozy mysteries are hard for me anyway, and this one just didn't sell it to me. There are a lot of people who love this book. It is highly rated. Don't take my word for it. It just wasn't a book for me. The second, sort of the same case, was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. That was way too dark for me. Way, way, way too dark for me. Gillian Flynn is not a writer I can read. I realize that now. But if you're someone who likes that really dark mystery thriller stuff, you probably would love this. It's probably a great book in that. It's just not my genre. It's just not my thing. So both of those, I personally don't recommend them, but that's because they aren't books for me. Third is this baby right here. Pericles by William Shakespeare. And I am not going to throw it against the wall, because the last couple times I've thrown it against the wall, people made comments that they're surprised the book still is in one piece. So I'm not going to throw it against the wall. But I hated this play. It's in the first act, you get both an inappropriate relationship between a father and a daughter that rhymes with invest, and cannibalism. So that's how you start. And then the rest of the play is a lot of stuff we've already seen in Shakespeare plays. Nothing really convincing. The play itself was kind of a hot mess, honestly. Not a fun hot mess like Cymbeline, just a hot mess in general. Just don't recommend it. It's my least favorite Shakespeare play we've read so far in the Bard Room, but there you go. Okay, now let's get to the books that I do recommend. The first one probably, you know, now I'm thinking about it, probably should have gone into the up in the air category, but it's still 3 stars. And that's 10 minutes, 38 seconds in This Strange World by Elif Shafak. This book I read for one of my book clubs, and the book club itself, the people in the book club, we were all kind of the same mind with it. But the writing is great. The title comes from the theory, belief, fact, I don't know. But anyway, that your mind or consciousness is still active after you die, anywhere from between 2 minutes to 10 minutes and 38 seconds. Hence 10 minutes and 38 seconds. So the first half of this book I think is beautiful. The first half of the book would be at least 4 stars for me. And a woman has been killed, and it's her going through her life in those 10 minutes, 38 seconds. And in the course of this, we meet her group of friends of like 5 or 6. I can't quite remember how many. I think there's 6, but there should only have been 5 because the 6th one sort of is left out and it's weird. But anyway, the second half is the aftermath of her death with her friends. And tonally, it was so discordant with the first half. It was almost madcap at times. And I'm like, I have kind of like reading whiplash from reading this. The two parts did not work together at all for me. And the rest of my book club kind of felt the same way. I would definitely read more about Elif Shafak. Just this one just didn't work for me. The second one I have is another case of probably me it's science fiction-y, I guess. Again, not a huge science fiction reader. So maybe I didn't get everything I could have. It's a short story. So it's one of those Amazon original stories that you can get either on Kindle or in Audible. And it is The Cleaners by Ken Liu. And the idea of this is you have objects, and whoever touches the object sort of absorbs all your emotions and your experiences, all that. There are people who can then pick up the same object and experience all the emotions and experiences that are left on this. That can be, inconvenient. But then there's also people who don't experience that, but are able to cleanse the item, like my Waterloo can, of those experiences and emotions so other people don't have to experience it. And in this, we sort of follow some people who are in different parts of that. Some feel it, some don't, about certain objects. And it just, to me, I found it really interesting. Ken Liu is a great writer. I will read more from him. I have an entire collection of his upstairs I have to read. It didn't all quite jive with me, and I think that's not the problem of the story. I think that's me not being a science fiction reader again. So, but I enjoyed it. I would recommend it anyway. Just say, it didn't quite all jive for me as a reader, but it's probably a me issue. And then I have a book called Welcome to the Hayunam Dong Bookshop by Hwang Bo Room. This is translated from the Korean, and I don't have the book, so I can't tell you who translated it. This is one of those cozy feel-good books, kind of like Before the Coffee Gets Cold. There's not a huge plot, sort of thing. I did it on audio. I enjoyed it. I can't tell you anything about this book now. I enjoyed the experience, but it did not stick with me at all. So yeah, there you go. And then my final book in this sort of group is Devolution, a first-hand account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre by Max Brooks. And I will be honest, this book was never going to get more than 3 stars for me, just because of the book it is. So the fact that it got 3 stars is actually pretty highly recommended, although it doesn't the way my system works. And it is about killer Sasquatches. And it's a lot of fun. I listened to it on audio. It's really a book that should be listened to on audio. The book is written so that it's very audio friendly. It's a full cast. It has, I know, Nathan Fillion, Kate Mulder's in it. Terry Gross is in it as herself. It's really meant for audio. So I would definitely, I don't always say that, you should do audio instead of a print, but this one I would definitely say do audio instead of the print. Not that the print is bad. It's just meant for audio. You just can't think that hard about it because it's kind of silly. It's silly, kind of stressful, fun. That's what it is. So there. It's great at what it is. Oh, you know what? Oh no, now we're on to highly recommended. Okay. These are books that I highly recommend. The first one I have here, and this is in the order I read them, is Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen by Alison Weir. I already read this with Michelle and Michelle and Reads. We're kind of working our way through it. We're taking August off, but we'll be back with Anna of Cleve in September. This is the story about Jane Seymour. The died of divorce, beheaded, died, divorce, beheaded, survived. This book is a lot more interesting than Jane Seymour is. Jane Seymour's not an interesting historical character. There are people in her family that I think are more impactful historically than she is. But Alison Weir actually told a really good story with her, and you can kind of tell by the subtitles, she added an element that I thought actually worked really well for giving this some depth. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one more than I thought I would, consider I'm not that interested in Jane Seymour. She's not that interesting, but as a historical character, but definitely was interesting in the book. So, you know, this is a series. I don't know whether I should say you can pick it up wherever or not. If you don't have any knowledge of Tudor history, you need to start with the first one, which is Catherine of Aragon, the True Queen. If you don't have any knowledge. If you do have knowledge of Tudor history, you probably could start anywhere, but there you go. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Okay, the next one was another Amazon short story, the second of 3 that I have here. And this one is The Best Girls by Min Jin Lee. This is a short story about a family in South Korea. And they're kind of living close to the poverty line. It's a bunch of girls. They have like 3 girls, I think, and then they have a son. And they come upon hard times. This is technically a horror short story, and it's one of those, because it is a short story, so it's not going to be like full-blown scary stuff like a novel. But it is one where I'm reading it going, why is this horror? And then I get to the end, and I'm like, oh, that's why it's horror. It was really good. Really good. Yeah, recommend it. Okay, and then I have a book that I was really looking forward to reading, and it 95% paid off for me, and that is So Far Gone by Jess Walter. You know I love Jess Walter. This is the story of Rhys Kinnick, who, and the book is set in 2024, who lives by himself in the woods, off the grid. And he has since 8 years before, 2016, he punched his conspiracy theorist son-in-law in the face at Thanksgiving dinner. And he's living alone, so we go to current day, which is 2024. And if you're worried about election stuff, there really isn't much. I'm sure this was written thinking that the nation isn't as stupid as it is. So you don't have to really worry about, like, there's not a lot of 2024 election stuff in here. But Reese one day goes to his front door and there's these 2 kids there. And he's like, okay, hi, what do you want? And then they said, we're your grandkids. And it turns out that his daughter, their mother, went missing, and their father has joined a Christian nationalist separatist group in Sandpoint, Idaho. And it's a little kind of, it's not very long, so it's kind of fast-paced journey for Reese to try to put his family back together. The book is actually a lot more compassionate than you would think, given the description. I really enjoyed it. The only thing that actually kept this from being a 5-star is there's one element of the book, which I can't go into because it would be a huge spoiler, that I didn't quite buy. If you want to know what it is and you've read the book, you can message me, Voxer, Instagram, whatever, and I will tell you. I just don't want to put it out there because it is a spoiler, but not enough to make me not like the book. It just isn't a 5-star book because of it. Okay, and then I have a book that surprised me. And I did this on audio, and this is The Brier Club by Kate Quinn. Now, I have read Kate Quinn in the past. I've read The Huntress and The Rose Code, and a short story that she wrote. Tried to read The Diamond Eye. About 2 days after I started reading The Diamond Eye, if I remember this correctly, Russia invaded Ukraine, and I was like, I can't deal with this right now. So that was a very soft DNF. This one is set in 1950 Washington, D.C. We have McCarthyism going on. I honestly thought this book would be more centered around McCarthyism and the Red Scare than it was. This is much more of a relational book about women who live in this boarding house. It's women only in the boarding house other than the owner's teenage son. And we get a viewpoint from everyone. Great personal stories. It was weirdly comforting. It was a weirdly comforting book for me to read right now, which is great. It was not what I was expecting, but that's okay. I will take it. Also, if you are into kind of like the whole experience of reading, Kate Quinn put together a Spotify playlist with music that she references in here. There's also a lot of recipes, some more appetizing than others. But I just found it kind of a comforting book. So, yeah. And then I have this one that hopefully a lot of the BookTube people have read, and that is No Matter What, A Story of Unwavering Devotion and the Power of Resilience by Erin Nichols. Erin, of Erin Go Live. This was her memoir of her life with her first husband, Sam. They, and this is not a spoiler to say Sam is no longer with us, but they were high school sweethearts. Shortly after they married, which was after high school, Sam joined the Marines. And so there was a little bit of an adjustment, becoming a Marine family. He did 3 tours of duty. One was in Japan. Can't remember where the other one was. And then one was in Iraq. Sorry, Iraq, yeah. And when he was in Iraq, he was injured in an IED incident. Traumatic brain injury, very traumatic brain injury, and a lot of physical injuries. And that happened in 2007. And so the bulk of this book is their life from 2007 until they passed in 2020. And it is really heartbreaking, but also very lovely. It's very honest. Erin gets really honest with this book. So recommend it. Made me ugly cry. There you go. Okay. And then I have my final Amazon little single original story, and this is Cut and Thirst by Margaret Atwood. This is for people who like books like The Thursday Murder Club or An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good. This is about a group of older lady friends who are plotting ways to kill these men who, in years before, had made life miserable for a friend of theirs. And it's just sort of kind of a funny, sweet little story. You never know what you're getting with Margaret Atwood, okay? Wasn't quite expecting this, but it was good. I enjoyed it. There you go. You can get it on Amazon. Not that I am promoting Amazon. I'm just saying that's where you can get it, because it's only available on Amazon and Audible. Okay, and then I have another buddy read that I did, which is Never Caught, the Washington's Relentless Pursuit of the Runaway Slave, Una Judd. I talked so much about this, more than I should have, because I realized editing there were a lot of spoilers. But I talked so much about this in my weekly wrap-up, most recent one, so I'm not going to talk that much about it now. Really enjoyed this one. I don't know if I'd call this a trigger warning. I guess my warning to readers is if you are someone who cannot handle your heroes being criticized or looked at as normal humans, and George Washington is one of your heroes, this book isn't for you, because George Washington doesn't come off well in it, and he shouldn't. But yes, really interesting, really fascinating story, very readable, especially for people who don't read history books. This one reads like a novel. As you can tell, I took a few tabs there. Okay. And then finally, in this group, I have a essay collection called Grace Eventually, Thoughts on Faith by Anne Lamott. I am planning to do a Books of the Spirit video on this to talk more about it, because it is a spirituality book. I do think this one has a much wider appeal than some of the ones that I have put in Books of the Spirit. Anne Lamott is a fantastic writer. She's really self-deprecating. Self-deprecating. She's very honest with herself. She knows that she's not perfect, and she is quick to point out her own shortcomings, and it's just a delightful sort of story. It is a little bit strange in that this book was published in 2007, and a lot of it is her consternation, her angst, and her frustration with the administration at the time, which was the George W. Bush administration, and how horrible it is. And all I could think was, you sweet, sweet child, you have no idea what you're up for. But it did actually kind of give me some sort of like helpful ways to kind of think about a current situation, which is much, much, much worse. Okay, let's move on to the 5-star books. I have 2 of them. And I'm going to do them in the opposite order that I read them. Because if this were December 31st and I were doing my ranking, these would be books number 2 and number 1 on my best novels of the year so far. I can't guarantee that's how it's going to be on December 31st, because I still have half a year to go. But as of right now, these are number 2 and number 1 for my best novels. And the first one is one that many of you have read. I am late. I am purposely late to the party because I missed my window to read it before the hype machine got started. So then I had to wait for the hype machine to be decommissioned a bit. And that is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This is her retelling of Dickens' David Copperfield, set in Appalachian, Virginia, and it deals with the opioid crisis. Damon has one of the strongest voices I have heard in literature anytime. Probably should read David Copperfield to see if that holds for David Copperfield. I don't know. Very hard book to read at times, but also just, I loved it. I loved it. I did not read this copy. This is not a tie-in copy. This is the British paperback copy that you could get back when it was only available in the US. And this was $11 and was only available hardcover in the US for $35. So guess which way I went. I listened to the audio. The audio is fantastic. So if you are an audiobook listener, that's a great option. Really loved it. Lived up to the hype. I am glad that I waited to read it though, because now I know that I enjoyed it for its own sake and not because I felt like some hype made me think I had to enjoy it. So that would be my number 2 book of the year. My number 1 book of the year so far is Woodworking by Emily St. James. I loved this book. Shortly before I read this, I read Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, which was a book that didn't really work for me because I couldn't buy sort of the plot element of it. I thought it said some really interesting things about the trans experience and all that, but the actual like plot, like, was like, really? Yeah. But this one, this is great. This is the story of 2 women, Erica and Abigail. It is set in the fall of 2016, and if you remember, there was definitely the cat has things to say. There were definitely weird things going on, weird vibes in the fall of 2016, and it's set in a small town in South Dakota. Erica is a teacher at the high school. She's a trans woman, but she has not come out, and she's still presenting as male. And she's kind of gotten to the point where she realizes that she can't continue this much longer. Abigail is a new student, high school senior at the school, who is trans. Everyone knows she's trans. She does present as female. And Erica kind of seeks her out a little bit. And Abigail they have a problematic relationship because it's a teacher-student relationship. And one thing I did appreciate is that Emily St. James did not shy away from like that issue that's going on there. But Abigail kind of becomes her trans mother, I guess is how they put it, like kind of helps her in the coming out process of trans. And there's a lot of other things that are going on in the town at the time because of the time that it is. And really, Emily St. James does such a good job getting into these characters and really opening their souls for the reader. Just amazing. I loved this book. As I said, it's currently my favorite book of the year. I think y'all should read it. Woodworking by Emily St. James. I buddy read this, and I down here I'm going to do a little jump because I forgot. I buddy read this with Mariandria. Although I finished this book on July 1st because I was going to count it as a Pride book, and Mariandria like finished it in June, so I think probably our buddy read was in June. if you want to work it that way. But anyway, let's go to my read-alongs and events. So one of the big events in July is Jane Austen July. And if you notice, there were no Jane Austen books. That's because I'm still working on it. Bookish Best Friend and I are reading Mansfield Park, and we are having some trouble with it. It is not a super successful book for me, but I'm going to finish it in the next couple days. I am going to finish it. I'm working my way through it. It's still happening. Okay. And then of course we had Big Book Summer, and I have 3 books here, 2 of which are actually here, that qualify for Big Book Summer. And Big Book Summer, if you don't know, which you should because I talk about it in all of my videos, is an event that Sue Jackson has been hosting for over 10 years. I want to say 13. I totally have forgotten how many years it's been now, but it's been a really long time. And this year I'm co-hosting it with her. So all you have to do is read a book of 400 pages or more. Now, some people just read one book and call that good, and that's perfectly fine. Other people only read books that are 400 plus pages, and that's perfectly fine too. I just make sure that I read a couple a month. And I have 3 here. The one that I don't have here because I listened to it on audio from the library, which is The Brier Club by Kate Quinn. And the 2 that I do have here are Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen, is that, and Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, also quite big. So yeah, those are going to go into my Big Book Summer notebook, which is kind of buried here somewhere. You cannot see the mess that's going on over here. I gotta find it. But yeah. So there was that. And then for buddy reads, as I said, woodworking, which I think probably was technically we would call a June buddy read. I did Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen with Michelle and Michelle Lynn Reads. I already mentioned that. Mansfield Park, I am doing with Bookish Best Friend. I mentioned that. A Canticle for Leibowitz, I did with Becca at Read Becca. I mentioned that. And Never Caught, I don't think I did mention this. This was a buddy read. I did this as a buddy read with Patrice at 2 Minutes on Books. So those were my buddy reads for the month. And there's nothing really else as far as events in July. So let's get to the reading stats. And I have, once again, since I filmed this before, I think it's 100. I think it's this. Oh yeah, I think it's this. I'm going to guess a little bit on that number. Not really, it's not a big deal, but my reading goal for the year that, your Goodreads goal, or Storygraph, you can do it on Storygraph too. I set a number, but it's really just more of this is kind of what I think I'm going to read. It's not a strive. I'm trying to find that sort of sweet number. I clearly have not found it yet. I set it for 175 books. I read 121 books so far as of July 31st. Which is 20 books ahead of schedule. So clearly I have not found the right number yet. That's okay, whatever. And then the next thing is the owned TBR. So for several years now, I have had a yearly goal that my owned TBR, so books that I own and but have not read, that number of books will be no more at the end of the year than one less than I started the year with. Did I explain that in a way that makes sense? So for example, we'll make the numbers easy for this. If I started January 1st, 2025 with 100 books that I owned that I hadn't read, that's kind of funny when you hear the rest of this. My goal would be to end the year with no more than 99 books. So you see what I'm saying? Yeah, I have never once met this goal. Never. I keep saying I'm going to do it. And I will tell you, I have good and bad news when we get to this. So right now, my goal is, here you can laugh about the 100 number that I used. It's 878. Now that includes print, digital, and audio. So all formats. The good news is I'm down from 2 from last month. So yay. The bad news is I'm up 15 overall. So I still have time. I can still do it. I have time. I just need to rein in the book buying a little bit. Now, let's break it down a little bit. Of those, 327 are print. Now, obviously, print is sort of the priority because print takes up space, unlike digital and audio. Like, that takes up space on my bookshelves. So 327 is a lot. But it's no more than I ended the month with last. Last month I ended at 327, so same. But that is up 23 overall. Now, ebook. This is where I blame those darn 99-cent, $1.99 ebook sales, which I've been really good about not buying lately. So, but I am down 2 from last month, which is down 6 overall. So there you go. If you break it down a bit more, as of right now, those are broken down into 2 more categories, which is Kindle and Kobo. At some point in the future, there may be a third one, which would be Bookshop. So far, the ebooks I purchased from Bookshop, I've already owned like in print, but I needed something bigger print. So they didn't add to my TBR. But Kindle, I currently have 123 books on my Kindle that I have not read, that I have yeah, whatever. And that's down 2 from last month and down 5 overall. On my Kobo, I have 363. That's the same as last month, but it's down 1 overall. Now audio. I have 63 audiobooks that I own and haven't listened to. That's the same as last month, but it's down 3 overall. And I have this broken down into 2 groups, and this will, as of August, be adding a 3rd group. But I have Audible, books I've gotten from Audible, and books I've gotten from Libro. The group that I will be adding starting in August, because I've already purchased a book by August, would be Book of the Month. But right now, it's still Audible and Libro. I have 14 Audible books, which is the same as last month, but down 1 overall. And I have 49 Libro books, which is the same as last month, but down 2 overall. So that's how that works. And that, my friends, is July. Now I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that I can get cat has feelings. Hope I can get this all uploaded and edited and ready to go and get this out to you. I don't know what the cat's upset about. But anyway, because as I said, I've already lost this video once. Anyway, tell me how your month went. Yeah, like, subscribe, join my Discord, leave me some kind of summary emoji if you want to. There you go. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.